Hello and welcome to the big picture. The Real Estate Regulation and Development Bill to regulate the real estate sector in the country has been in making for quite some time. Finally, the Union Cabinet has passed the draft of the bill yesterday, which has been received largely positively. The need for regulating real estate has been felt ever since the liberalization of the economy. The home buyers in particular and the investors in real estate in general have been at the receiving end of dubious and substandard real estate developers who have shortchanged the ordinary home buyers for a long time. The cumbersome legal processes in the country had left the home buyers with few options but to stomach the injustices and carry on. The bill passed by the Cabinet aims to protect the home buyers from such malpractices which has prevailed in the sector. It also aims to standardize many aspects in the sector which should help the ordinary home buyer to make better and safer choices. However, some in the real estate industry are worried about some of the clauses in the bill which seeks to penalize and even jail those who cheat the home buyers. There is also a concern that it may hike up the home rates apart from not addressing the red tape and delays in clearances. Today we will look at how this real estate regulatory legislation will protect the home buyers and whether it should lead to better experience for all. To discuss this, I have with me M. Ramachandran, former Secretary, Ministry of Urban Development in the Government of India, Brigadier R. Singh, Director General, National Real Estate Development Council or NAREDCO as it's known as, Prodipta Singh, Executive Director, Alpha G Corp, one of the leading builders in the Gurgaon area apart from other places, Samant, Jerath, leading property consultant and real estate advisor, S.K. Pal, Chief Advisor, Federation of Association of Apartment Owners and Advocates in an advocate in Supreme Court. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Ramachandran, this has been in the making for a long time. I think you were also part of preparing this bill, which has gone through a long process. But at the end of the day, when you see this legislation or the bill which has been approved by the Cabinet, are you satisfied with it, with its form and content?
I would start by saying this is a much desired measure which I don't know why it didn't come into
Why it didn't come all the
years. And even this process, as you referred to, this has been going on for more than 5 years.
Yes.
So that also shows what type of influences work when these things are attempted.
Absolutely.
Of course, now we are only at the stage where the Cabinet has cleared it.
Yes.
It has to go before Parliament. And with the amount of legislative work pending before the Parliament, one really has to see when this will materialize.
Absolutely.
So this is only the first step as far as hope is concerned. But it's a much desired measure because, as you mentioned, large number of individuals spread out in different parts of the country have been undergoing this torture, if I may put it like that.
Absolutely.
While there is no doubt about the positive role the real estate sector plays in the development of the economy, but at the same time for an individual, especially if somebody is advanced in age and one is looking for one dwelling unit for oneself.
Right.
And if that takes time, all the other conditions are always met. You have to make payments. If you don't make payments, you will be penalized. Whether it is delivered on time or not, there is no guarantee about that. Whether it has proper approvals, whether the land titles are okay or not. These issues, I suppose, at least will get addressed properly once we have this scheme in position. But I'm not very sure. One has to see the contents of the bill. What happens to brokers and middlemen and the like if they come into play, whether they also will get covered or only the developers?
I think the bill mentioned something about the brokers and all. It also seeks to bring in those people also and make them part of the regulatory system. But we will look at those issues a little later. I will go to Prodipta Singh because they are one of the leading builders. Prodipta Singh, your industry, you people who have been involved in building these huge projects and things like that is fine. Now this regulation or regulator, do you think will help all home buyers, or it will only be confined to a certain category of home buyers beyond a certain income level?
Girish, firstly, let me tell you that this regulation that will come, this regulator that we are looking at, and if it is implemented correctly,
right,
and with a very strong will to succeed, then I think it's going to help everyone across the board.
Right.
The reason why I'm very happy about it, because this is something which Alpha G Corp has been practicing for the last 10 years. Whether it is a specific escrow account, project specific, where all the money is brought in to ensure that the project is completed, all that we've been practicing already for the last 10 years.
Okay.
So for us and for our buyers who've been there, it should be a problem.
Okay. But do you think that this is something which will help all categories of home buyers, and also will all those problems which the normal home buyers, you are saying that as far as your company is concerned, you have been practicing most of these things which has been brought into the bill. But what about the other builders, all those people who have been suffering for years and things like, will this bill really be able to implement and bring all those people who have not been really following the rules under this thing, and will it not be difficult to...
Like I said...
Yes.
Like I said, that, if there is a strong will to make this regulator succeed all across the board in every state, then it is going to help every stakeholder, every home buyer.
Okay.
And in the long run, it will help the builder too.
Okay. I have with me Mr. S.K. Pal. S.K. Pal is the Chief Advisor of the Federation of Association of Apartment Owners, and you're also an advocate in the Supreme Court. Now, you represent the actual owners who have gone through all the torture, as Mr. Ramachandran mildly put it, because people have undergone more than torture when they have to buy a home. So you think this bill, as it has been cleared by the cabinet, is something which will, by and large, help the home buyers in future?
I think yes.
And not, this torture will not continue.
I think after this bill comes into effect,
yes,
post this bill, I think life for an end user and investor in housing sector would be slightly better predictable.
Okay.
Today it is very unpredictable. They don't know when they are going to get their property, and the rest of the thing follows. So I think it will start a new era for sure.
Okay. So some of the problems, what has been the biggest problem for home buyers so far, and has that been addressed in this bill?
I think it has been taken care of because this bill has come...
What was the biggest problem which a home buyer would face?
It's largely been unaccountable, absolutely no transparency. Most of the time, a person would end up getting a project which was never conceived at the beginning. He thought he would be getting a project, he gets a different project altogether. It is delayed. Delay makes life even worse, like he explained it. And what is the biggest problem at times is that if delay and everything happens, then the litigation that follows is the most problematic thing for a common man, because he is not ready for this.
So this tribunal which has been envisaged in this should be able to keep people out of the normal courts, and this tribunal should be able to handle all these things, you think?
I think Mr. Sen rightly said, it is the will of the government, because at the end of the day, the regulator or the tribunal, the powers given to them, it should not be a toothless body. It has to be a powerful body. Fine. These are all tribunals may not be having the kind of powers that Supreme Court and High Courts will have. But then if the right kind of powers are given to them by which they can penalize people, and the penalty are of a substantial amount, and in a way it redresses the problem in a very efficacious manner. The problem is delay. The problem has been that if you get into a litigation, it takes years together, and a person finds it very difficult to sustain it.
Okay, let me come to Brigadier R.R. Singh. Mr. Brigadier, you are the Director General of the National Real Estate Development Council. Your NAREDCO has been trying to impose these kind of good practices among the real estate builders and people like that. You think this bill would help you in further imposing those kind of regulations, those kind of good practices, or you think that there will always be some bad eggs in the basket who will not be conforming to these things?
Undoubtedly, this bill will bring a lot of transparency in real estate sector, and NAREDCO has been associated right from the beginning in framing this bill. our suggestion was that all the stakeholders of real estate industry should be brought within the purview, within the ambit of this particular bill.
Yes.
That somehow has not happened for many reasons.
This bill, let me, I just want this, the clarification to be made. This bill applies only to residential things.
Now, this bill will be applicable only to residential constructions.
Right.
Earlier, and before the cabinet approval, probably it was real estate.
Was it NAREDCO's efforts to have all kinds of buildings and all kinds of real estate to be brought into this? Was that your effort earlier?
No, we were basically concerned about the housing.
Okay.
That was our main concern, that housing should be part of it.
Okay.
Government has brought the whole real estate sector into the ambit of it. I think it is good thing that the other things have been taken out of it, so that the concentrated effect is on the housing.
Let me come to Samant. Samant, Jerath, two things. One, what Brigadier Singh said. The other thing is, the bill clearly says that it applies to those projects which are 4,000 square meters and above, right? So, 4,000.
It's modified to
1,000
as we read it in the press now.
As we read it in the press now. So 1,000 square meters, which means about 10,000 square feet. See, the problem, you think the problem of the low-end user, low-end home buyer, who is looking for apartments of 15, 20 lakhs and things like that, you think that will be, because what we see in some of the NCR region, these small plots of land where, they build some 20, 25 flats or whatever it is, this will not cover them, and the problems of the small buyer will remain after this bill?
No, Girish, I'll be a little cautiously optimistic on this. Okay. Because, we haven't read the complete contents of what the bill says.
Okay.
And the step is welcome. As our panelists just mentioned that, the bigger issue today is there are a lot of people sitting out there who are very gullible. They are not sure when they go and park their money in a developer's office.
Right.
What is the status of even the project per se?
Absolutely.
Whether even the land has been acquired or not.
Absolutely.
So, I'm happy to hear that today there's at least some body which is going to be overlooking this.
Yes.
You have projects being announced.
And every project needs to be registered with this regulator.
No,
at the state and the central level.
My point is registration is, is something which is a process which can go on its own.
Okay.
My bigger concern today is that a housing project, small, big or, large, depending on the scale.
Right.
The bigger question today is that is there a monitoring body which has some kind of a teeth, where there is some kind of a deterrent to a developer or to any guy in real estate, right, before he goes live with this project, there is a fear of law right, in him. That am I going to be held accountable if tomorrow a project does not take off, or if tomorrow there is a regulatory issue with my property, or is there a approval related issue? So I think if this bill takes care of the larger issues, that you cannot, like registration, of course you mentioned. In the registration process, is the body or the tribunal, as Mr. Singh was mentioning, does he have the whereabouts to understand and really get to the core of the issue that yes, it has got land title, it has got the approval, and is good to go live. After that, if the project takes off, project completion is also a function of market dynamics.
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, no developer has got the capability of financing a full project. It is all a function of saleability also. So I think as long as the principal issue of land being there, approvals being there, and the project actually being approved and physically being there, I think the bigger issue is taken care of. Because we've seen in the past, because we have now been seeing real estate for the last 45 years.
Yes.
We're a second generation real estate service provider. If the developer has got land and he's got it commercially approved, 9 out of 10 cases it will go through. The issue happens when land is partly held, approvals are not fully in place.
Yes.
And after some time, if the developer is very leveraged into multiple projects,
then he'll
keep flipping his funds from
all
A
over
to B
so
to C and D.
that is something which this bill aims to curb.
Yeah, and another thing I'd like to add here is that this as it is, we struggle in this country with approvals. A regulatory body is welcome, but it should not become a deterrent or another stumbling block for people who have to take their projects go live. That
we will discuss that. That's another issue which we'll discuss a little later. Mr. Ramachandran, very quickly before we go into a break, will this require a huge bureaucracy again to monitor? Because every time a builder goes to them, says that, this is the project which I want to do, how is that process of, checking, cross-checking everything that the builder is, projecting to them? Or, that fear of this also ending up as a very, the corruption and all these problems is also something which is a real concern.
In fact, that's what I'm a little bit scared of, because we always start with very good intentions.
Yes.
And then it comes to positioning people, sanctioning posts and things like that. Currently, we are talking about one regulatory authority for the entire state, though some states can have more than one also.
Okay.
But looking at the spread of our cities and towns, I mean, we have something close to 8,000 cities and towns. We are mostly talking about this type of development will be in the urban areas. So the volume of work which will have to be handled by these authorities, it is going to go up substantially, because each developer will have to register.
Right.
And I think those who are less than 1,000 square meters or so would be much, much less. The ones would be the larger ones. Each one has to register, and then someone has to scrutinize that. Not only that, if there are grievances or complaints, this body has to look into that.
Right.
So I don't know whether we will end up with another layer of bodies which will have large number of cases piled before that. Dates would be given one after the other, and the poor fellow has to keep on making appearances. My turn is not coming. So immediately, I go back to my basic point about governance. This is also an issue of governance. So there should be some immediate mechanism whereby if the work goes up, there is a subsequent immediate expansion of these bodies who would look into these issues. So there should be something like an optimum volume of work which can be handled by one authority or so. If we can define that, and the moment we cross that, if we can have more authorities region-wise or town-wise or so, that would be very, very helpful. And that type of an awareness has to come about in the governance system also.
Okay. I mean, this is a very interesting suggestion which you have made. Hopefully, at the stage of when it comes before the parliament and when they discuss these issues, hopefully this will also be taken note of. But we have to discuss a few other things. Please keep watching. We need to go into a very short break. We'll come back very soon. Welcome back. We are discussing the bill which has been cleared by the Union Cabinet to create a real estate regulator in this country. And let me go to Prodipta. Prodipta, this bill specifically deals only with the residential sector. Now you people are dealing with many other sectors also, not just residential, commercial properties and things like that. You think there is no need for such a regulator in the commercial property section?
Well, to start with, one can start with the residential sector first, because there are going to be a lot of practical issues that will come in terms of implementation.
Right.
Once one is able to perfect that, then one can look at bringing in the commercial and other, the other developments.
Okay. So you think to start with this, sticking with the residential sector is quite okay.
Yes. Add one thing here. I think like you were addressing the bigger issue, like Mr. Ramachandran was mentioning, this shouldn't get caught in the bureaucratic tape also.
Yes.
I think my thought on this would be that if there can be some kind of a public-private partnership on this, you have representation from the developer side as well. Because this is a very large country.
Yes.
And real estate is very area specific.
Right.
The rules states to states vary. So there are a lot of people in particular state, there are good developers also, who have done a lot of good work.
Yes.
If they can be on the panel as well, a lot of things can be ironed out. Otherwise, purely left to governance and left purely to the government, I think it will take a while before it really gets streamlined.
So Singh, do you agree with that idea?
Definitely. I think because so that what are the problems at the ground level, what the developers are facing a problem, that is also projected in the particular setup, which is deciding on the issues and cases and all that. I think we had suggested this, that there should be from like our institutions, other institutions and all that, some people can be picked up from such type of institutions and made member of the, maybe in the member of or real estate regulatory authority, or somewhere where the advice is required. so that their problems or developers are also addressed.
Mr. Ramachandran, you think that's a feasible idea? You think that the bureaucracy would like to allow outsiders to be part of this kind of a regulation mechanism?
So normally when we have a legislation and it's a regulatory system,
yes,
probably others cannot come in the form of an advisory role.
Absolutely.
And those who have interest also cannot come in because they are supposed to be as neutral and independent as possible.
Absolutely.
But one possibility is, I mean, I would see it from the other end. The developers, if they reduce the scope for cases and things like that, that itself would be a very positive step. The fact that now there is a legislation.
So that they are more proactive in providing the right kind of...
Exactly. But I see the point as far as clearances and things like that are concerned, because that pertains to some other authorities. It could be the local body.
That is exactly the point which I wanted to come to now.
Right.
One of the concerns which has been raised by people after this bill has been passed is that a builder goes through hell of a lot of clearances. There are multiple clearances which he needs to require. That aspect has not been addressed at all in this bill. Prodipta, is that a thing? Did you expect this bill to address the problem of the builders also, who have to have this multi-level clearances to be done, several delays which happen to every single clearances which you need to take?
What?
Yes.
Girish, what I think is going to happen ideally is that this regulator body is like a precursor to bringing in a single window clearance.
Absolutely. And you think that will happen?
So this is just the first step.
Okay.
I think it will have to happen. There's no other way out.
Mr. Ramachandran, do you think that... I'll come to you.
The very idea of a single window clearance, though we like talking about that in effect cannot happen because each system is governed by a certain legislation.
And for a project, for a major project of say, some 50,000 square meters and things like that.
There could be a local body clearance, there would be a fire clearance, there would be a CRZ clearance in some areas, there would be environment clearance, there are issues like that.
Yes.
So a single window in that sense cannot happen in our country unless there is single legislation which
can encompass all this.
That won't happen. But there could be a positive point in this, in the sense that when this regulatory authority, if they are asked to submit annual reports to the legislature or whoever it is, they will highlight these issues that though this many cases came before us, this many remained pending because the clearance process itself is taking such a lot of time. So that needs to be improved.
Okay, Mr. Jerath, you wanted to...
Yeah, no, I just want to, add one thing here is that, real estate is a very complex issue as it is. It's like he just mentioned, the location of the asset or the parcel of land, there are very specific issues related to that. So, I'll come back to my same point. You need to have developers on board as well, because it's a very complex issue, and no matter how much we may want, there's so much the government can do on this. Because there are a lot of sensitivities and nuances to each project.
No, but as Mr. Ramachandran was rightly pointing out, when you have the stakeholders being part of the regulator, don't you think that there will be conflict of interest?
I'm not saying that they are the ones who are party to the decision making. At least there should be a program where they are able to voice their concerns. The bigger issue today is the policy makers, how well they interface with the end users. See, our basic objective here is to safeguard the common man who's buying apartments, who's putting his hard-earned money or his life saving into buying an apartment. The bigger question is his rights are protected. So as long as you can make sure that the land is there, the approvals are there, I think 85% of your problem is done. Because once the land...
Is that the major thing? And I'll come to Pal
I just want to bring this issue that single window clearance, there has been a task force in the Ministry of Housing and Urban Poverty Alleviation. They have submitted their report. And there is, this whole debate is going on that every state should have a single window clearance system.
Right.
And that should be online. I mean, so that everybody, what happens that suppose if a approval is required from airport authority, it does not come unless until you go there and bring it. If there is a approval required.
When you say bring it, it has a lot of...
I do not want to qualify it. Suppose they have nothing to do with it. Suppose airport authority, a project which is coming not in the funnel zone, why is the approval of airport authority is required? It is required only if the project is coming in the funnel. And secondly, if the Archaeological Survey of India, if that approval is why it is required if it is the project is nowhere near the monument.
Monuments.
So
Okay.
such type of things come only when person goes and brings it.
Okay. Mr. Pal.
I think the first attempt that this bill, whatever I have been able to go through the draft bill, the attempt is not to anyway tweak into the system which is existing.
Okay.
Like development authorities which have been made the competent authority under this act,
Right.
which is a very beautiful thing. What they're trying to do is keeping all the present system in place, whether it's the role of the fire department, whether it's the role of the development authority in terms of the bylaws, building bylaws and various things. This authority, the problem so far has been, an end user point of view has been lack of reference.
Okay.
What did you book? When did you book? What were you supposed to get? There's absolutely no reference.
And where do you go for grievance redressal?
Perfectly. So this is exactly what this bill attempts to do. Once a person comes and writes it down to a government body that this is my land, this is the title of the land, this is the scheme that I am proposing, these are the number of flats, this is going to be the common area. What happens is later on everything fall in place.
So, okay, on that hopeful note, I think we need to end. But the fact of the matter is that the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So, we will wait and see how this bill will finally emerge out of the parliament whenever it emerges, as Mr. Ramachandran was pointing out. This is just the first step. There's several other steps before this bill becomes a law, and the home buyers will find some relief from the kind of problems and torture which they have been facing so far. Thanks to all my guests, Prodipta, Singh, SK Pal, Mr. M. Ramachandran, Samant, Jerath and Brigadier Singh. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue on the big picture, same time tomorrow.